Mötley Crüe has had a great run. I'm touring until I cannot move anymore. And then, after that, when they bury me, I'm still going to have a Mötley Crüe record playing up a tube. Tommy would dig me up and use my bones.
Who is Mick Mars? Mars is the guitarist who helped build the legendary monument that is Mötley Crüe. With emotionally charged playing, chilling riffs, and extraordinary endurance, he became the silent musical soul of the band. Born with ankylosing spondylitis, Mick Mars didn't walk with proud, effortless steps, he walked with silent endurance and rare, unyielding perseverance. When Mötley Crüe exploded with sold-out tours and anthems that shook the world, few realized the man standing quietly at the corner of the stage was battling excruciating pain every second. After 40 years of dedication to a world-renowned band, he left in bitterness and lawsuits, a musician who gave his life to the cause, only to be pushed aside by the very brothers he once stood beside. What turned Mick Mars, the once vital soul of Mötley Crüe, into a forgotten shadow? And what gave him the strength to rise and forge a new path of his own after betrayal? Let's dive into the story of Mick Mars. Mick Mars, born Robert Allen Deal on May 4, 1951, in Teyote, Indiana, came from a poor, working-class family. His parents, Tina and Frank Deal, moved the family to Garden Grove, California, hoping for a better life. Raised in a cramped home alongside 4 siblings, Mars's childhood was far from stable. He was different from an early age. At just 3 years old, a local fair performance by country singer Skeeter Bonn left a lasting impression on him. He told his parents, "This will be my life." At 12, he received his first guitar, cheap, but to Mars, it meant everything. While other kids played sports, Mars taught himself guitar by listening to Elvis Presley and surf rockers like Dick Dale. However, around age 14, Mars began experiencing sharp pain in his spine. He didn't understand it, nor did he share it. He attended school with a small frame, a hunched back, and a mind consumed by music. He joined a band called the Jades, first on bass, then quickly on lead guitar. Performing at school concerts and dingy bars, Mars refined his craft. At 18, a factory accident nearly ended his dream when he seriously injured his hand. But Mars chose music. He quit his job, dropped out of school, and chased his calling despite worsening pain. Playing in run-down bars, racked with agony, he still hit every note. While others were still chasing dreams, Mars knew his career would not be a game, it would be a war. Frail, in pain, with injured hands, he never let go. His early career was filled with failure. After leaving manual labor, he played in blues rock bar bands around Southern California. One notable group was White Horse, which helped him gain attention for his energetic style and emotionally charged solos. His name was even spoken alongside Eddie Van Halen. But when White Horse leaned toward disco, Mars walked away. He wasn't built to chase trends, he needed something real. After several more failed projects and singles, he underwent a complete transformation. He shaved his mustache, dyed his hair black, and reinvented himself, even changing his name to Mick Mars, symbolizing a rebirth. In April 1980, Mars placed an ad in the Recycler newspaper. Loud, rude, aggressive guitarist available. Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee responded. Mars' cold demeanor, intense gaze, and crushing riffs left a deep impression. He even coined the band's name, Mötley Crüe, inspired by a comment about White Horse being a motley-looking crew. With their ferocious sound and rebellious image, Mötley Crüe became iconic. During early rehearsals, when Mars' guitar roared, the others knew they had found the missing piece. He wasn't just a guitarist, he was the band's musical engine, its anchor. Despite being in his early 30s and suffering from spinal pain, Mars stood with 3 hungry 20-somethings and helped lead them to success. After forming in 1981, the band quickly rose in the overcrowded Sunset Strip heavy metal scene. Mars' thick, cold guitar tone gave the band weight. Their debut album, Too Fast for Love 1981, was full of simple yet catchy riffs and powerful hooks. It gained a loyal fanbase and led to a deal with Elektra Records. Their breakthrough came in 1983 with Shout at the Devil Star. Mars developed a darker, heavier sound, blending hard rock and metal. His riffs in tracks like Looks That Kill and Too Young to Fall in Love became signature elements of their sound. Between 1985 and 1987, the band peaked commercially. Asterisk Theatre of Pain asterisk, 1985, featured the ballad Home Sweet Home, driven by Mars' moody, restrained playing. Asterisk Girls, Girls, Girls asterisk, 1987, leaned into the band's bad boy image, with Mars' bluesy, gritty guitar leading tracks like Wild Side and You're All I Need. By 1989, asterisk Dr. Feelgood asterisk became the band's most successful album, topping the Billboard 200. Under producer Bob Rock, the band's sound grew tighter, and Mars showcased the peak of his skill, from the roaring energy of Kickstart My Heart to the haunting emotion of Without You. Through it all, Mick Mars wasn't just the guitarist. He was the soul of the band, the silent force who carried the weight in pain, in shadow, but never in defeat. Playing guitar, Mick Mars was the musical foundation of Mötley Crüe, holding the band's sound together even as the other members spiraled into drugs, alcohol, and media scandals. While Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee dominated interviews and Vince Neil became the band's public face, it was Mars who transformed their chaos into living, breathing music, both on stage and in the studio. Meanwhile, ankylosing spondylitis continued to ravage his body. Mars grew more hunched with each passing year, moved slower after every tour, and while his bandmates partied into the night, he quietly retreated to his hotel room to battle pain that lasted until morning. A little-known truth: Mick Mars rarely took part in Mötley Crüe's wild escapades. He was the only member who largely stayed clear of scandal. But that difference, that distance, widened the gap between him and the rest of the band. For Mick Mars, those years of skyrocketing success were a double battle, one for his career, and one for his very existence. While Mötley Crüe climbed the charts, his body went in the opposite direction. Diagnosed at just 17 with ankylosing spondylitis, a chronic form of arthritis that gradually fuses the spine, the disease started with backaches, then sleepless nights, and eventually mornings where even standing up was a fight. It deformed his posture and shrunk his height by nearly 7 centimeters. Yet, he never spoke of the pain. When the lights came on, Mars stood with his head bowed and his guitar clutched like a replacement spine for a body that was falling apart. Every tour was a brutal test, long flights, back-to-back shows, sleepless nights on the road, each a nightmare for a man whose spine was collapsing, vertebra by vertebra. Still, Mars never complained. Unlike his bandmates who turned to excess and self-destruction, he lived quietly. He wasn't close to Vince Neil or Tommy Lee, and his relationship with Nikki Sixx was purely musical. For more than 2 decades, he was a solitary figure within the very band he helped create. In The Dirt Mötley Crüe's autobiography, Mars admitted to falling into severe depression. He drank heavily to numb the pain and became dependent on opioid painkillers. At his lowest point, he walked into the ocean one night, drunk and desperate, intending to end it all. He woke up soaked, freezing, and unsure whether he was alive or already a ghost. In the 1990s, his condition forced him to undergo hip replacement surgery. Though it eased the physical pain, it couldn't cure the loneliness. He was the only Crüe member not chased by paparazzi or splashed across magazine covers. To the public, he was the quiet one, the odd man out, the shadow of Mötley Crüe. Yet it was his guitar that kept the soul of the band alive. For more than 40 years, he fought disease, isolation, and invisibility without surrender. In 2022, after decades of loyalty to his band and fighting through illness, Mick Mars made the painful decision to stop touring. His health could no longer endure the physical demands, but he made it clear, he was not quitting the band. He was still ready to record, perform at stationary shows, and contribute in every way he could except on the road. Just 24 hours later, Mötley Crüe announced that Mars had retired and would be replaced by guitarist John Five. There was no discussion, no meeting, just a press release. Mars realized he had been pushed out. This time, he didn't stay silent. In early 2023, he filed a lawsuit against his former bandmates in Los Angeles Superior Court, accusing Nikki Sixx, Vince Neil, and Tommy Lee of conspiring to remove him from his stake in the band's business. He alleged they attempted to force him to sell his 25% ownership at a lowball price and concealed financial records for years. The lawsuit exposed shocking claims that Sixx didn't play live bass on tour, relying on pre-recorded tracks, that Vince Neil's vocals and Tommy Lee's drums were heavily supported by backing tracks, and that Mars had been marginalized and mocked over his health, age, and private life. The band responded by citing a previous agreement stating that any member who withdrew from touring forfeited touring revenue and related rights. But for Mars, this wasn't about money, it was about dignity. About recognition. He had sacrificed his health and life to help build a legacy, and now that legacy was being stripped from him. In a partial legal win, the court ordered Mötley Crüe to pay Mars legal fees for delaying the release of documents and granted him the right to access the band's financial records up to 2022. Though the lawsuit is ongoing, Mars made one thing clear: he will not be erased. He will not be silenced. Even if abandoned and standing alone, he will keep fighting, just as he always has. Leaving Mötley Crüe was not the end for Mick Mars, it was the beginning of his rebirth. Free from image, commercial pressure, and internal betrayal, he turned to what mattered most: the music. Retreating to his private studio in Nashville, he began work on a solo project decades in the making. On February 23, 2024, he released The Other Side of Mars *, a bold and deeply personal album. The title itself was a declaration: this was a version of Mars the world had never seen. The album took nearly 4 years to complete, with Mars overseeing everything from songwriting to arrangement. He brought in trusted collaborators. Paul Taylor, former Winger and Alice Cooper keyboardist, co-wrote several tracks, and Jacob Bunton, ex-Lynam and Adler, lent his emotional vocals. Ray Luzier of Korn added power on drums, and legendary producer Michael Vaughaner, who had worked with Mötley Crüe on *Too Fast for Love*, captured its raw, unfiltered spirit. The Other Side of Mars wasn't a return to glam metal, it was evolution. Fusing hard rock, blues, and industrial elements, Mars redefined himself. Songs like Loyal to the Lie and Right Side of Wrong showcased his riff writing at its sharpest, heavy, cold, yet full of feeling. It was the sound of a man who had survived betrayal, illness, and invisibility, and still had something to say. Like memories uncovered through music, The Other Side of Mars revealed a different dimension of Mick Mars, one filled with reflection, maturity, and hard-earned wisdom. Throughout the album, Mars' guitar tone remained unmistakable, thick, dark, and deeply emotional. His solos didn't strive for technical flash, instead, they radiated raw feeling, something Mars had always prioritized over speed or showmanship. In rare interviews, he put it simply: "I'm not trying to sound like anyone else. I don't have anything to prove. I just want to play the way I want to, honestly, without apologies." Critics praised the album as one of the most authentic works from a veteran artist in years. With The Other Side of Mars he finally achieved what decades in Mötley Crüe never allowed: total control over his music, his voice, and his destiny. No longer hiding in shadows or suffering in silence, Mick Mars finally stepped fully into the light on his own terms. Offstage, Mars' life was never as loud as his guitar. It was quiet, complex, and often filled with painful absences. Long before Mötley Crüe, he married his teenage sweetheart, Sharon Deal, with whom he had 2 children, Les Paul Deal, named after the iconic guitar innovator, and Stormy Deal, who would later inherit her father's battle with ankylosing spondylitis. But the stress of grinding through bar gigs and mounting financial pressure fractured the marriage. As Mötley Crüe was forming, Sharon left, taking the children and leaving Mars alone, struggling with music, debt, and unpaid child support. At one point, he risked jail if pulled over by police. Friends recalled needing to scheme just to help him avoid arrest between tour stops. During that turbulent time, Mars fathered another child, Eric Deal, through a brief relationship with local singer Marshall Martel. But his absence during Eric's early years created a lasting distance. While Crüe soared in the 1980s, Mars' personal life remained in disarray. He married again in 1990, this time to backing vocalist EMI Cannon, but the marriage lasted only 4 years, crumbling under the pressure of internal band chaos and Mars' deepening physical and emotional pain. Both marriages left him with more than financial scars, they left him with children he barely knew and homes he couldn't keep. It wasn't until 2007 that Mars found a new kind of anchor, Serena Schonenberger, a Swiss model more than 30 years his junior. They met after a show in Zurich. Serena, then just 22, drawn to the intensity of the quiet man behind the sunglasses. In 2013, they married. For the first time, Mars had someone by his side not for fame or money, but for who he truly was. Today, they live a quiet life in Nashville, far from the spotlight. Mars spends his days writing, recording, and taking peaceful walks, sometimes with a cane, sometimes with a silent smile. His relationships with his children remain complex. Les Paul shares a closer bond, having followed his father into music, while Stormy and Eric have chosen quieter lives, maintaining some distance. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Mars once said, "I missed out on too many things that I can never get back." There are losses that don't make noise. There are wounds that cannot be measured by money or success. Behind his cold, silent exterior is a man shaped not just by pain, but by perseverance. In 2024, Mars reached a new milestone. On February 23, he released The Other Side of Mars *, his first solo album under his own label, 1313 LLC, in partnership with MRI. It was an entirely independent work and a triumphant return after his departure from Mötley Crüe. Critics and fans alike praised standout tracks like Loyal to the Lie, Undone, and Right Side of Wrong. The album preserved Mars' signature guitar tone, cold, dense, and emotionally charged, while embracing modern production and a broader sonic palette. No longer confined to outdated formulas, Mars blended classic hard rock with fresh influences, proving that even in his 70s, his creativity was still evolving. And he's not done yet. In 2025, Mars confirmed that a second solo album is already in development. This new project promises to be even more expansive, both sonically and emotionally. To bring that vision to life, Mars partnered with renowned engineer Chris Collier, known for balancing modern production with artistic soul. Now living quietly in Nashville with Serena, Mars is focused on writing, recording, and maintaining his health, no longer needing stage lights, but still lit by artistic purpose. While his legal battle with Mötley Crüe remains unresolved, Mars has not ruled out the possibility of future collaboration. But his priority is now clear, a solo journey where, for the first time, he holds the reins. His legacy is greater than a catalogue of riffs, it is the story of a man who gave Mötley Crüe its sound and soul during the band's most volatile years. His influence reaches beyond the 1980s hair metal scene into generations of modern rockers who found inspiration in his restraint, emotion, and raw conviction. Mick Mars was never the showman. He wasn't the voice, the frontman, or the face on magazine covers. But for over 4 decades, it was his relentless guitar, the cold, unyielding backbone, that held Mötley Crüe together. And at an age when many have long faded from view, Mars continues to write, to play, and to quietly move forward on legs long battered by illness, driven not by applause but by sheer will. He doesn't ask for sympathy. He doesn't need the spotlight. But through his silence, his loyalty, and his unwavering honesty, Mick Mars has etched a legacy that speaks louder than words. Have you ever quietly fought for something you believed in, just as Mick Mars has done his entire life? If so, share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more powerful real-life journeys like this one.